طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما إلى علمنا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Inshallah, we'll start with it won't really be a reading, but more so of a exploring the explanation of the Ayat of Ahkam, the book known as Fath al-Allam بتفسير آيات الأحكام أو بتفسير مآخذ الأحكام. فتح العلام بتفسير مآخذ آيات الأحكام, written by الحطاب اسمه عبد الرحمن ibn Ali al-Hattab. And in this book, the author, he is explaining a book of his known as Bulugh al-Maram bi Tafsiri Ayat al-Ahkam, which is a book in which he took the ayat of Ahkam and organized them according to the chapters of Bulugh al-Maram. So if Bulugh al-Maram min Adillat al-Ahkam by Ibn Hajar is the book that deals with the ahadith of Ahkam, then this is its companion book that deals with the ayat of Ahkam. And if Subul al-Salam or something like that is the explanation of Bulugh al-Maram, then this book, Fathul Allam, is the explanation of the ayat of those, the explanation of those ayat that deal with Ahkam. So first off, we want to talk about when the scholars, they mention, or when you hear people mentioning the different types of Quran, where they talk about taqsim al-Quran, or the different types of the Quran, then there are a lot of different ways that the Quran is broken up. So for example, Ibn Abbas, he has a statement, Ayat al-Quran arba'ah. The ayat of Quran are 4 types. Types that the Arabs know via their language. The meaning of those ayat are accomplished via the Arabic language. And from them are those that nobody is excused in having ignorance of them. Meaning the second type of ayat are ayat that everybody has to know and nobody is excused in their ignorance of that ayat. And then he mentions a 4th type, which is the type that the ulama understand. A type of ayat that the ulama are the ones who understand it because they have this understanding of the religion. And then the 4th type of ayat is those ayat that nobody understands their meaning except Allah. And so this is the statement of Ibn Abbas, as far as how he might have broken up the Quran into 4 different types. And other people do different ways of breaking up the Quran, as Safari, al-Hadari, al-Layli, al-Nahari. And these things are sought in what are known as the books of Ulum al-Quran, the books that deal with the science of the Quran, the different taqasim or anwa of the Quran, the different categories of the Quran. Because if not, then the entirety of the Quran is about Tawheed. So you might have heard this statement before, there's not an ayat in the Quran except that its purpose, its goal is Tawheed. And when we talk about Tawheed, we know that Tawheed is of 3 types. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, wa Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. The Tawheed of Allah in His Lordship, the Tawheed of Allah in His divinity, and the Tawheed of Allah in His names and His attributes. And so when we look at the Quran, even though the Quran has different types and different topics and different goals and different categories, all of them in reality are in this one category of establishing Tawheed. Because every ayat in the Quran is either telling us something about Allah, which would be Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, or it's telling us about what Allah wants, which would be Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah or Uluhiyyah, the commands and the prohibitions, or it's telling us the stories of those who established Tawheed and what they got, and the stories of the people who did not establish Tawheed and what they got, whether it be past or the future. And so all of the Quran in reality is surrounding, and its topic is Tawheed. But as we said, there are different categories of the Quran. And from the different categories of the Quran is what they talk about ayatul ahkam. Ayat that deal with rules and regulations. When we say ayatul ahkam, then we're talking about those ayat that deal with do this, don't do this, haram, halal, mustahab, makruh, right? What we know as al-ahkam al-khamsa or al-ahkam al-taklifiyya. Wajib, that which the legislator has commanded in a way that is binding. Mustahab, that which the legislator has commanded in a way that is not binding. Makruh, that which the legislator has forbidden in a way that is not binding. Haram, that which the legislator has forbidden in a way that is binding. And mubah, that which there is no command or prohibition from the legislator regarding it. So this is what is meant when we say ahkam. And so the ayat of ahkam are the ayat that deal with this topic. When it comes to the ayat of ahkam, then scholars disagree. Are the ayat of ahkam a certain amount of number in the Quran or not? Meaning, is there a specific number of ayat al-ahkam, or are they numberless? Meaning every ayat is an ayat of ahkam, right? And so because of this, people disagree about it. So for example, you might look and say, okay, ayatul ahkam, the more popular statement is that they're 500. That there's 500 ayat in the Quran that deal with ahkam. And some of them say 200, and some of them say only 150, right? So out of all of the ayat in the Quran, and I'm trying to think without referring to my notes, I think some of them say it's like 7,000 ayat in the Quran. Ayatul Quran, 4,400, and some people say, oh no, that's the hadith. That's the amount of hadith. I don't have that amount of ayat in front of me. But out of all of the ayat in the Quran, some of them say it's only 500, and this is the popular opinion. While others say they're unlimited, meaning every ayah is an ayat of that you can derive halal and haram from. I personally lean to that it depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at the ayat that are direct in halal and haram, then perhaps them being limited to a certain number is more accurate. The ayat that are direct and clear about wajib, mustahab, makruh, haram, mubah. As far as the ayat from which you can extract a benefit from, what they call istinbat, where you can use an ayat that's talking about something else and use it as a proof for a rule or regulation, then those are unlimited. Every ayat in the Quran can be used as a proof for something. So for example, right? ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون no ضرب الله للذين آمنوا ضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط. But the ayat after that, ضرب الله مثلا الذين آمنوا مثل امرأة فرعون إذ قالت. What's the ayat? سبحان الله سبحان الله. لا that's the ayat عيسى ومريم ابن عمران التي أحسنت فرجها فنفخنا فيها من روحنا. But the ayat before it, وامرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي بيتا عندك في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين. But I can't think of how the ayat begins. فرعون وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون. Right? Everybody know this ayat? And Allah sets an example using the wife of Fir'aun when she said, "Oh my Lord, build for me a house in your Jannah and save me from Fir'aun and his actions and save me from a group of people that are zalimin." Is that ayat al-ahkam? Think about the ayat. ضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني. And Allah sets an example of the wife of Fir'aun when she said, "Oh my Lord, build for me a house in your Jannah and save me from Fir'aun and his actions and save me from a group of people who are ظالمون."
Ahkam for like being patient.
But that's not a hukum. It's not a hukum. So when we say, what is ayat al-ahkam?
Okay. Like,
The rulings. Wajib, haram, mustahab, makruh, right, mubah. It's not an ayat of ahkam.
Yeah.
It's not. But if we use the method that is known as istinbat, you'll find from the scholars who say this is a proof that the marriages of the kuffar are valid. If two kafirs get married, is their marriage valid or invalid? How do you know?
Because of Fir'aun and his wife.
Fir'aun and his wife, and they were two kafirs. Huh? She was a believer after she married him. She wasn't a believer when she married him. You see what I'm saying? And they were two kafirs, and Allah acknowledged their marriage, right? So you see how that ayat, even though it's not an ayat of ahkam, it can be used as an ayat of ahkam. So if we look at it from the aspect of istinbat, then the ayat of ahkam are numberless, right? They're limitless, not limitless, because the Quran has a limited amount of ayat.
what's istinbat again?
Istinbat is extraction, right? It's not on the surface, but when you think about it, it can be used. Her requesting to be separated from her husband, that a Muslim woman shouldn't stay with a kafir, right? And there's so many benefits that come. Like, I like this topic a lot because here in America, we have these issues. When is a marriage, especially amongst kafirs, right? I remember we had the issue in the masjid here about common law weddings and marriages, and are they considered or not? You see what I'm saying? So this ayah can be used as a proof of the marriages of the disbelieved, even though it's not an ayat al-ahkam. So from that aspect, they're numerous. They're unlimited. What's the word? Innumerable. But they're numerable. That's the problem I keep running into, because the ayat of the Quran have a set number, but it's every ayat can be an ayat of hukum. But as far as the ayat that are direct, then they are limited. The ayat that are direct in a hukum. Like, for example, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. Right? That's a hukum. And it's clear. And that's direct. So the ayat that deal with that are limited. And like we said, some of them say 500, some of them say 200, some of them say 150. 500 is the more popular opinion because this was the first book that was written in Ayat al-Ahkam by Muqatil ibn Sulaiman. He said, Tafsir 500 Ayat al-Ahkam. This book is the tafsir of 500 ayat that deal with rules and regulation. It's the first book written in this topic by Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, who died in the year 150. Side note, if these are the ayat of ahkam, then we also have a hadith of ahkam. How many are there? Right? When we talk about hadith of ahkam, what kind of book specializes in hadith of ahkam? Anybody remember? Huh? No, not the name of a book. What kind of a book?
You mean like mustalah? Science?
No. What kind of book of hadith deals with a hadith of ahkam? What kind of a book? What kind of hadith book? Are all the hadith books the same? Do they all have the same category? What kind of book is Abu Dawood's book? No. What kind of book is Abu Dawood's book? Sunan. Yes, because those are the different types of books of hadith. You have a jami', it's not exclusive to a hadith of ahkam. You have a mu'jam, you have a musnad. These are different types of books of hadith. But when you want a book of hadith that's exclusive to a hadith of ahkam, where do you look? A sunan and a muwatta. Right, a muwatta will have it as well, right? Because a muwatta doesn't go outside of that. The point of it is that So we know the books of ahadith of ahkam. We're talking about the foundations, not the later books, which are known as books of hadith of ahkam, which are books that are extracted from those and summarized. But how many ahadith of ahkam are there in reality? Like, for example, the Muwatta has how many hadith? Like 900 and some change? Hadith. Hadith. 900 and some change. The whole book is about 2,000 and something. But just hadith marfu' is about 900 and some change. But how many hadith of ahkam are there?
Over 1,000.
So some of them say 500, similar to their opinion about the Quran. So they say there's 500 hadith of ahkam and 500 ayat of ahkam. Ibn al-Mubarak, he says 900. He says there's 900 hadith of ahkam. Meaning, at the end of the day, there's only really 900 hadith that you have to know to be able to determine halal and haram about things. Abu Yusuf, Yaqub, the student of Abu Hanifa, he says there's 1,100. Right? Ibn al-Mubarak said about him, he takes from everywhere. يأخذ من هنا وهنا. Right? He takes too many. He takes stuff that's not authentic. Ali ibn Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, he said there's 800. So we see them all floating around this number, somewhere between 5, 8, 9, 11. The point of it is that there's a small number in reality. And that's why when you see the books like Bulugh al-Maram and things like that in hadith of ahkam, you don't find them really going over 1,000, 1,200, 1,800. You see what I'm saying? And even in that, there'll be some repetition. The point of it all is that these are the ahadith and the ayat of ahkam. Like, the next question that comes with that. These are the ahadith and the ayat that you have to know to speak about the religion. If you don't know them, you can't talk about the religion. You can't say halal from yourself. You can't say haram from yourself. So there is a number of hadith that a person who wants to reach the level of ijtihad, who wants to reach the level of being qualified to speak about the religion, he has to know them. And we now have that number. About 500 ayat, and about 1,100, 1,200 hadith. The question is do you have to memorize them, or do you just have to know them? Do you have to memorize them ala dhahr al-qalb, or do you just have to understand them?
Say both.
Okay, you say both. Why?
Because if you're going to speak, you're going to have to memorize it so you can...
No, you could translate by mean. You can, like for example,
You're going to remember everything.
no, I'll give you an example. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just want you to think about it. How many times you know a hadith in Arabic that you don't remember the words in Arabic?
Yeah.
But you understand it.
Right.
But you didn't memorize it.
True.
But you understood it. So,
But am I going to say it though?
yeah, you're going to say that this is the answer to that question based on this hadith, even though you don't remember the hadith verbatim. Even though you don't remember the ayat verbatim. You say there's an ayat, the meaning of which is Allah says you can't do this. Does that qualify you to speak about the religion?
I wouldn't do it.
Or do you have to know verbatim what Allah said? Do you have to know verbatim what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? Huh?
On the same side.
But the Prophet said, "Baligh anni walau ayah."
Well, ayat, but you got to know the ayat. That means you would have to memorize it. You see what I'm saying?
Ayah is not. Is it complete hadith or is it?
It's an
part-
ayat. It's baligh anni walau ayat. Convey about me even if you only have one ayat that you learned from me. If all you learned was Qul huwallahu ahad, then transmit to the people Qul huwallahu ahad. The Prophet taught us from the Quran Qul huwallahu ahad.
So it's not kamil.
It's an ayat. That's a
Not
complete
most-
ayat.
Okay, yeah. So the ahkam in the surah, yeah.
So
An ayah.
this issue is something they disagree about. Some of the scholars say no. For you to be considered qualified, you have to memorize these things. You have to know them ala dhahr al-qalb. So if you don't know them yourself, then you're not qualified. Because nowadays, for example, all of us can return to Google and Google the ayat. You know, Chat GPT, unfortunately, even worse, right? We can look up the hadith, and everybody can do that. But it's the person who knows that, who has that information with him, that sets him apart as the person who knows the information. While other scholars say, no, you don't need to memorize it. You just have to understand it and be able to access it upon demand. And this is the difference of what they talk about, faqihun bil fi'l wa faqihun bil quwwah. A person who is understanding of the religion in actuality, right? He's hands-on, he has it with him. And somebody who's faqih, he understands the religion, but he understands it with his ability. Meaning he might not know all of the ayat, but he can get to them, right? And the reality of it is who knows every ayat? Okay, that's easy. The Quran is memorizable. But who knows every hadith? And there's not a person who knows every hadith. There's not one person who has ever or will ever know every hadith, right? And so if that's the case, then to say that you need to memorize them all, you can see a deficiency there already. Likewise, there's some statements of the Salaf that lead me to lean to the position that they don't need to all be memorized or understood. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and you probably heard this before, he said, "Inna nas'ubu alayna hifdh al-ayat wa sahula alayna al-amalu bihi." أو حفظ القرآن ألفاظ القرآن. Ibn Mas'ud, he said, it's difficult upon us. إنا نصعب علينا حفظ ألفاظ القرآن. We, and when Ibn Mas'ud says we, who is he talking about? Sahaba. He said we. It used to be hard on us to memorize the words of the Quran. وَسَهُلَ عَلَيْنَا الْعَمَلُ بِهِ. And it was easy for us to act according to it. And he said, وَإِنَّ مَنْ بَعْدَنَا يَسْهُلْ عَلَيْهِمْ حِفْظُ الْقُرْآنِ. And those who come after us, it will be easy upon them memorizing the Quran. وَصَعُبَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَيَصْعُبُ عَلَيْهِمْ الْعَمَلُ بِهِ. And it will be hard upon them to act according to it. So this is Ibn Mas'ud telling you that you don't need to what? You don't need to memorize everything. Was Ibn Mas'ud a mujtahid? Was he a scholar of the religion? And it was hard on him memorizing the Quran, right? Well, somebody might say, well, it was hard on him to do it, but they still did it. And of course, Ibn Mas'ud did it, right? Ibn Mas'ud is from the Huffaz of the Quran. So somebody might say that's not a proof, Abdul Hakim, because even though it was hard, he still did what? He still did it. طيب. Ibn Umar, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, كان الفاضل من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في صدر هذه الأمة لا يحفظ من القرآن إلا السورة أو نحوها ورزقوا العمل بالقرآن. Ibn Umar, he said that indeed the companions, the fadl, not just the companions, al-fadilu, the most noble and virtuous of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the beginning of this ummah, which it means to be Salafi, to look back at them, ما كان يحفظون من القرآن إلا السورة. They might only memorize from the Quran a surah or something similar, but it was made easy for them to act according to it. What surah has the most ayat al-ahkam in it? Al-Baqarah, right? You think about Al-Baqarah, Al-Ma'idah, Al-Nisa, right? These are the surah that Surah Al-Ahzab. These are the surah that have a predominance of ayat al-ahkam in them. How long did it take Umar to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah? It took Umar 7 years to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah. That whole time, was he a scholar before he memorized it? Right? So what's necessary is not per se memorizing them, but having a good understanding of them and being able to access them upon demand. Right? You have your copy of the Mus'haf. You understand what are the ayat of ahkam. You know where to find them, and you know how to understand them when you come across them. This is what is necessary to make you qualified, amongst other things that we're going to talk about, as it relates to the ayat of ahkam. Let's talk about the other things. What are the other things that are needed to talk about ayat al-ahkam? We talked about what the ayat of ahkam are. So how do we recognize that this ayat has a hukm in it? Right? Either it comes with the expression command, if'alu, do this, right? Then that ayat is clearly a what? A command. Like Ibn Mas'ud, he said, when you hear Allah say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, fastar'iha sam'ak, then lend it your ear. Because it's either a command that you're being told to do or a prohibition you're being told to stay away from. Once you see an ayah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Ya ayyuhan nas, off the top, ayat of command or prohibition, ayat al-hukm. It has in it the statement, do, ijlisu. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا. Right? That's a command. خلاص. We know that that's an ayat of ahkam. Another way you know an ayat of command is that it's expressed as an obligation. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام. Did Allah tell you to fast? And that ayat, you have iman, fasting has been prescribed for you. It's been ordained upon you. Did Allah tell you to fast in that ayat? Did Allah say fast? Allah did not say sumu. He did not tell you to fast. You see what I'm saying? There's not a fi'l amr there. There's not a command there. So how do we know that fasting, that this is an ayat of hukm?
It's already been.
Allah told us that fasting is a command, right? He mentioned kutiba alaykum. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum al-qisasu fil qatl. It's been ordained, it's been prescribed, it's been written, it's been commanded upon you. So even though it's not directly Allah telling you to do it, it's clear that this is a command. You see what I'm saying?
Is it like saying Rahim Allah?
No, so Rahimullah is a command, but it's a command that's meant as a dua. But what we're saying is that in Arabic you have to be precise. If Allah tells you to do something, how do you know Allah is telling you to do something? In Arabic, there's something that is known as sighatul amr, the form that constitutes a command. Ijlis, kum, idhab, ukhruj. Those statements are what kind of fi'l? Fi'l amr. So this is one way to know Allah is commanding you to do something. He gives you a fi'l amr. Like sometimes there's no fi'l amr mentioned. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum al-qisas. Where's the fi'l amr? No.
Oh, yeah, really meaning.
But the meaning is clear that this is a command because Allah told you He did it. So it's informative, but it's informing of a command, right? So this is from the siyagh of how you know something is a command. Also, from the ways you can know something is a command or an ayat of hukm, is that a reward or praise is attached to the action, right? قد أفلح المؤمنون. Is that an ayat of hukm? Yes. Falah is attached to what? Iman. So iman is what?
Mandatory.
Legislated, whether it's obligatory or mustahab, right? We'll look at that later. But this is showing you that this is a command, not because Allah said believe in this ayah, right? But because a reward or praise is attached to it. أولئك الذين أولئك هم الوارثون الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون. Right? قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. Nowhere in those series of ayat is Allah telling you to do those things. Think about all of those ayat, those 10 things. Allah is not telling you to do them. Allah does not say in anywhere in there, do this. So do we have to do it? Is that an ayat of hukm? Is Allah telling us what to do in this ayat? You understand the question? Huh?
No.
So is Allah telling us what to do in these ayat? Yalla, bring up the ayat. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. Tell me where you hear the command. Indeed, the believers are successful. Any command?
No.
Is there a command?
We don't like.
Is there a command?
Linguistically or?
Linguistic, that's what we're talking about. Because remember, we're being in Arabic. This is قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. If I say, Akhi, you got to have Iman. What's your proof? Allah said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. I said, where's the proof? Allah didn't say I had to do it. He just said they're successful. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not a command. So is this an ayat of ahkam? We said ayat of ahkam are known firstly by the command that's clear in it. Right? وَاسْجُدُوا لِرَبِّكُمْ وَرْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. It's a command. It's clear. Or by there being an informative statement of command. Right? كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ. Right? فَوَاجِبٌ عَلَيْهِمْ. Right? وَجَبَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Or, what's the third one? Attaching a reward or praise to it. So let's look at this example. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Is that a command? Is that a command?
Yes.
No, it's not a command.
Oh my God.
Is that a I'm not saying it's an ayat of hukum.
Right.
I'm saying, is it a command? It's not a command. Allah didn't tell you to. Is Allah telling you that this is obligatory? No. So how do we know that this is an ayat of hukum?
What comes after?
Before what comes after it? The reward, the praise is attached to it. You see what I'm saying? الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Is that a command? No. Is Allah telling you have to do it in this ayat? But is this an ayat of hukum? Right? When we keep going down, we're going to see by what comes after, right? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Turning away from laghu. Is that a command in this ayat? No. Is Allah telling us we have to do it in this ayat? Not necessarily. You see what I'm saying? But it's still an ayat of hukum. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. Those who give their zakat. Is this a command? Keep going. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Command? Right? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَعَهْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ على صلاتهم يحافظون. Okay, what does Allah say after that? أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسَ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. So that means that all of those ayat are what? Ayatul Ahkam. But Allah didn't tell us to do anything in them. Allah didn't command us to do anything in them. Allah didn't tell us that this is obligatory on us in those ayat. How are they ayat of Ahkam?
Because by doing that,
Because the reward attached to them. Right? If you want Jannah, if you want Falah, this is what you have to do. So it's as if we're saying the least of these things is going to be what? What would the hukum be? The least of it would be what? What's the word? Mustahab.
I was gonna say sunnah.
Sunnah would have been accepted, right? Mustahab. Because what is mustahab? What the legislator commands us with in a non-binding way. So even though there's no command here, it's as if he's commanding us to do it, and the least of it would be in a non-binding way. So these are ways you can recognize ayat of command, ayat of hukum that deal with commands. Tell you, what about ayat of prohibition? That's a command. Yeah. What about ayat of prohibition? How we recognize those?
words like
La taf'al. Don't do. That's clear and direct. La taqtulu anfusakum. Huh?
Like if you're talking about it's attached to a reward, what about attached to a punishment?
That's the third one.
Okay.
So take the same three and just opposite. How do we know it's a command? Allah tells you to do it. How do you know it's a prohibition?
Allah told you not to.
Allah told you not to do it. La taqtulu anfusakum. Don't kill yourself. Therefore, killing yourself is haram. This is an ayat of prohibition. Or attaching a negation to it. Right? La yu'minu ahadukum. Right? Ulaika la yu'minu. That means whatever that was being talked about is what? A prohibition. Because Allah is negating the iman. Allah is negating something in this. As opposed to in the obligation, Allah was establishing that it was obligatory. Here he's informing us of the negation. He's not telling us not to do it, but by telling us who didn't do it, we see we should not do it either. And then thirdly, how else do we know something is a prohibition? It's being attached to punishment or to disgrace and things like that, right? So these are things that we need to know when we come across these ayats so we can recognize, okay, this is an ayat of hukm. It's telling me to do something or to stay away from something, and this is how it tells me to do or stay away.
So when it comes to the Quran, there's three ahkam that we can derive from each ayat if it's obligatory, and three if it's
Three methods of
methods, yeah.
recognizing, and there's more too, but we're just being simple. These are the main three that we're going to look at and say, oh, I see this as a hukm. Right, so if I tell you Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, is that an ayat of hukm? Is Allah commanding me to do something here?
No.
Is Allah telling me something is obligatory here? Is there some reward being attached to it here?
I mean, he's the Rabb, like
We know He's the Rabb.
Murabbi.
But the question is this an ayat that's telling me do this, don't do that? Because when we talk about ayat al-ahkam, there's three types of ahkam. There's ahkam aqidah. We're not looking at that. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen is ayat al-ahkam in what? Aqidah. It's establishing that Allah is the Rabb. First of all, does everybody know what a hukm is? Do you know what a hukm actually is? A hukm is what you say about something. This phone is old. What's the ruling of this phone?
It is old.
Old. Right? To attach an affair to another affair is a hukm. So when we talk about ayat al-ahkam, we have ayat al-ahkam al-aqidiyya, al-aqidiyya, or al-i'tiqadiyya. Ayat al-ahkam that deal with our belief. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. That's a hukm. But that's a hukm that deals with aqidah. Where is Allah? Ala al-arsh istawa. We're not looking at that here. You have ayat al-ahkam that deal with akhlaq, that deal with character, right? And you have ayat al-ahkam that deal with legislation, halal and haram. That's our main focus here. Now, the ones that deal with akhlaq, they'll enter in as well most of the time, because the akhlaq will be what? Things that are halal and haram, right? La tadkhulu buyutan ghayra buyutikum, right? So, when we're talking about ayat al-ahkam, we're talking about the ayat of ahkam that deal with legislation, not the ones that deal with aqidah. So when we look at Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, is that an ayat al-ahkam of legislation?
Legislation.
No. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in.
No?
How?
No.
It's just saying we did it.
To worship.
It's just saying,
Iyaka.
how? We worship you.
Right.
How? Where's the command?
Only
It's the
Where's the command? We know it's we only worship you, or we worship.
what's the
I know. That's why I'm trying to see if you got the answer.
Something that's already like.
Yeah, but it's
You're not mentioning it, but it's
what was not mentioned?
The
what is the
amr.
second one?
The amr.
Yeah.
Allah is saying, "Say iyaka na'budu."
Same thing for alhamdulillah.
Exactly. That's why I kept repeating to see if somebody's like, "Okay, but Abdul Hakim, you said Allah is actually telling us to say Alhamdulillah." You see what I'm saying? And so that's a command. But sometimes what we notice is the word isn't there. So you have to understand these type of things in Arabic when you start talking about, okay, this is an ayat of hukm, right? What else do you need to understand? You need to understand how the ahkam work, or the madlulat, the evidentiary nature of the ruling. Like the evidence, how is it an evidence? You understand that? How is the evidence an evidence? Kayfiyat al-istidlal. How do you use the evidence? Is it am? Is it general, all-encompassing? Or is it specific? Only covering one thing or a certain thing? Is it absolute, i.e. unrestricted, mutlaq? Or is it restricted by certain things? Muqayyid. It has certain qualifications. Is it mujmal, undefined, unexplained? A general statement, Aqimus salat. What's salat?
The prayer.
What is it? It's mujmal. It's not explained. Allah just told you to do it. You see what I'm saying? He didn't explain to you what to do. He just said do it. And so you have mujmal and you have mufassar, something that gets explained, right? What is qisas? Al-hurru bil-hurri wal-abdu bil-abdi wal-untha bil-untha. Allah explained it a little bit. You see what I'm saying? He gave you some details about it. What's the inheritance? لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلَ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. Allah gave you some details there. He explained it. So you have general, am wa khas, specific. You have mutlaq, unrestricted, muqayyid, restricted. You have mujmal, unexplained. You have mufassar, explained. These are all different things that we'll see connected to the ayat that we need to understand when we're going to talk about them. Also, from the things you need to understand, an-nasikh wal-mansukh. What is abrogating and what has been abrogated. I need to know, is this ayat still applicable today? Or has it been abrogated? Has it been revoked? Because there might be a hukm in this ayat that's no longer applicable. And I need to know, when do I abrogate? What if, do I abrogate absolutely or do I abrogate specifically? Right? Sometimes we're going to see something where there might be an abrogation, but the ayat is still applicable just in a different circumstance. Right? وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةُ الطَّعَامُ مِسْكِينٌ. Is that ayat abrogated? And on those who are able to fast but don't, feed a poor person. Is that ayat abrogated? It's not abrogated? You can feed a poor person? No. عِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Make up the days later.
I thought you meant in general.
I'm asking you, is the ayat abrogated? What'd you say? If you're old, it's still applicable. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, it's still applicable. If you have a chronic illness, it's still applicable. So is the ayat abrogated? Some people that say, yeah, it's abrogated. Because Fadl can't do it no more. Because Fadl, if he doesn't fast Ramadan, he has to do what? Iddatun min ayyamin ukhar. So if you can't fast, you have to fast. But somebody else, it's still applicable. So do we say it's abrogated or not? So we need to understand abrogation and what's abrogating or what's being abrogated. We need to understand asbab al-nuzul, the reasons behind the revelation, because that can potentially change the ruling. Or does the ruling restrict itself to the cause, or can I use it however it's applicable? Like, for example, we just gave you an ayah, la taqtulu anfusakum, don't kill yourselves. What was the cause behind that revelation? Anybody know? It was about giving charity. No, I'm sorry, not that one. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. And don't throw, even though لَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ was something similar, but وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And don't throw yourselves to destruction with your own hands. And be good. Allah loves those who are good. What was the reason behind that revelation? Charity. By not giving charity, you're throwing yourself to destruction with your own hands. So when I understand
Zakah?
just sadaqah in general, in charity. When I understand the reason behind that revelation, doesn't that change the ruling? Yeah. If somebody else comes and says, Akhi, suicide's haram. You say, what's your evidence? I say, well, Allah says, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Don't throw yourselves to destruction with your own hands.
So it's specific.
But that's true though, to everything.
And so the question is the ayat restricted to its reason or usable in any circumstance that the words are applicable to?
How do the Sahaba?
Huh?
How do the Sahaba explain it?
That ayat I just told you about, that's what he said. I'm not going to say just that's it, but that's how they explained it.
Right.
But the question is, can I use that ayat to say don't kill yourself?
You mean don't
The words suit that meaning,
Yeah.
Because you're sinning if you're killing yourself.
meaning don't give me the other hadith, don't give me this ayat. Does this prove it? You see what I'm saying? Well, the words suit it. هل العبرة بعموم اللفظ أو بخصوص السبب. Is the consideration given to the generality of the word or the specificity of the cause? You see what I'm saying? That changes how you look at things. And the answer is the generality of the word for most of us, right? We're going to hold that opinion. The point of it is we need to understand all of these things when we're talking about Ayat al-Ahkam. Because when we're looking at the Ayat al-Ahkam, we're going to be making these judgments based off of this type of understanding. Where do we build our understanding of these things? Usul al-Fiqh. And that's why this is a good exercise for somebody who wants to develop how to answer questions in Islam. When you look at these ayat, that's why he named the book بتفسير مآخذ الآيات مآخذ آيات الأحكام. Al-Ma'khadh is the principle or the rule of something. So like, what is the rule that this ayat is establishing? And then from this rule, we're going to talk about the disagreement of the scholars regarding it. How do they look at this rule and apply it? So that's what we're looking at. We're not going to be looking at we're going to look at a lot of individual issues, but we're going to look at them from the aspect of what is the rule in this ayah. So our agenda in this book will be three things. Look at the ayah in its totality. Look at the alfaz, the verbiage of the ayah, the wordage of the ayah. Words I might not understand, the gharib, right? And then look at what does this ayat prove to various people. Like, a couple more points for introduction before we get started. We said the first person to write in this field was Al-Muqatil ibn Sulaiman. And his book is available. You can find his book. And after him, other people wrote. And a lot of them would write in order of ayah. So they would use the first ayah that came across, and then like this. They wouldn't put it in order of topic. The first person to put it in order of topic was Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi. Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi al-Hanafi, the one who wrote Al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya, the one who wrote the books of Hadith, Mushkil al-Athar wa Ma'ani al-Athar. He was a major scholar, and he was one of the first people to write in this field. He died in the 4th century, 300 and something. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but he died 300 and something. And he was the first one to write the Ayat of Ahkam in order of topic. So instead of you having to just, okay, what's in Baqarah and just be random, okay, we'll start with what? What's the first topic? Before wudu, you need tahara, water. Iman, but Iman would be Ayat al-Ahkam, Aqidah. See what I'm saying? So he was the first one to put them in order of topic. This book in front of us, he puts them in order of topic, arranging them according to the topics of Bulugh al-Maram. So whatever chapter title Bulugh al-Maram had, whatever kitab Bulugh al-Maram had, he'll bring the ayat of ahkam that suit that location. And if he can't find one, he'll make a location. Let me see. Taqsim, we did that. Adad al-ayat al-ahkam. أول من صنف, we just did that. أقل شيء أن يفهم, we did that. معرفة أوجه والأساليب والإلزام والناسك والمنسوخ والأسباب والقواعد. Another thing we didn't talk about is what we talked about. That's good enough. هذا كتاب يفيد. Now, this we talked about that too. But this book, it helps us in a science known as تخريج الفروع على الأصول. In Islam, there's different sciences for the one who wants to understand. You have takhrij, the science of takhrij, they call it. How to derive information. When you want to extract a point and make a point, you need to know how to do it. And that understanding that we have in our religion, how do we arrive at these rules? Like, for example, the rule, al-amr yaqtadi al-wujub. Right? When we talk about the principles that we use when we make a command necessitates what? If Allah told you to do something, what does that mean? It's wajib. A command necessitates an obligation, unless something else comes and changes that. That's a rule that we have. How do we get this rule? So there are 4 ways of kind of developing one's skills as it relates to the general evidences and the general rules of Islam. The first of them is what is known as takhrij al-usul ala al-usul. You use one rule to make up another, to get to another rule. And this is what is usul al-fiqh, right? The majority of the people in usul al-fiqh, they call it tariqat al-shafi'iyya, they look at rules like language rules, and they make religious rules from that. They look up physical rules and they make up religious rules from that. They look up aqidah rules and they make up legislation rules from that. You see what I'm saying? So they use rules to make rules. The Hanafis, they have a different technique. They use the topics to make rules. Takhrij al-usul min al-furu'. To take the rules out of the topics. They gather up all the topics, and when they look at them, they compare them. Well, you know what? All of these fit perfectly into this package right here. Let's make a rule for that. And so they take the topics, and then they make the rules. You see the difference? The majority, they start from the top. We take a rule, and then we make a rule, and we apply it to the topics. The Hanafis, they take the topics and make a rule. Both of these are usul al-fiqh, just different methods in usul al-fiqh. Then you have something that is known as takhrij al-furu' ala al-furu' or min al-furu', that you use the topics to make topics. What's that? You use a topic to make a topic. Smoking weed, is it permissible or not?
No, it's not. No.
What's your
I mean,
proof?
Prohibition of alcohol.
That's alcohol.
That's it, comparing.
I use the topic to make a topic. I use the topic of alcohol, this particular subject, to prove that I can't do what? Smoke weed. I use the topic for a topic. I didn't use a rule to make a topic. I didn't use a rule to make a rule. I didn't use a topic to make a rule. I used a topic to make a topic. What's that called?
I forget.
Qiyas.
Yes. I said qisas, but
Yeah,
I
I got you. The fourth one, which what we're going to do is very helpful in, is takhrij al-usul ala al-furu'. Right? To use the topics to make issues. I'm sorry, to use the rule to make topics. The foundation, we're going to take a major principle and start applying it everywhere it could go. So it's like the inverse of what the Hanafi does. The Hanafi uses the issues to make a rule. We're going to use the rule to talk about a whole bunch of issues. And this is a good exercise in usul al-fiqh to show you that you're utilizing the rules correctly. So whether you go the method of the majority and use rules to make rules, or you go the method of the Hanafi to use topics to make rules, you still need to know if you're utilizing those rules correctly, right?
What's an example of that?
What?
The Hanafis.
Topic to make rules? We'll look at, for example, let's take an example.
Is that the fourth one? Topic to make rules?
It don't matter what order you put them in, but no, that's the second one.
Second,
So,
yeah.
usul, takhrij al-usul ala al-usul, using a rule to make a rule. Takhrij al-furu' takhrij al-usul min al-furu'. That's the second one. Taking the rules out of the topics. For example, let's take some topics. I'm trying to think. Okay. Because sometimes it won't be different, but let's look.
When you say topic, you're not talking about like the.
We're talking about the
chapter
issue.
title or anything.
So, far. In usul al-fiqh, we don't study topics. What do we study?
Ahkam.
No, we study rules.
Rules, yeah.
Right? In usul al-fiqh, you're not studying fiqh.
Oh, yeah. Usul, yeah.
You're studying the rules, the evidence, the proof of the fiqh.
Right.
So in usul al-fiqh, do I know khamr is haram?
No.
No, I don't care that khamr is haram in usul al-fiqh. That's not my topic. That's a topic in fiqh. In usul al-fiqh, what do I care about? The prohibition necessitates haram. So, takhrij al-usul ala al-usul. I take a general rule. I look at language. How do I get to a prohibition in language? How do I tell somebody not to do something in language?
You know,
Nasfil amr Nahi.
The nahi.
Don't do something. Okay, that's a linguistical rule. Don't do something is how I prohibit somebody from doing something. Like, what does don't do something mean? Does it mean you have a choice, or does it mean you don't have a choice?
You have a choice.
If I tell you don't do something, it means you have a choice?
Yeah, if you don't, you can still do it.
No,
You can still do it.
I'm somebody who's in charge, and I tell you don't do something. Do you have a choice to still do it after that? Linguistically.
No.
So therefore, the prohibition necessitates halal. I use one rule, a language rule, to get to this legislative rule. The Hanafi would do it the opposite way. Let's look at all the times the Prophet said don't do something. Bring me these hadith where the Prophet told us not to do something. And we already know the answer in these circumstances. The Prophet said don't drink alcohol. What's that? Allah said don't commit zina. What's that? Allah said don't kill yourself. What's that? All these prohibitions are saying what? I mean, all of these statements don't do are saying what? Prohibition. So I use the issues to make the rule. They meet at the same place. They both have the same rule. It's just how they got to that rule. You see what I'm saying?
So it's the other way around.
It's just the other way around. We use not even the other way around. No,
No.
it's we use rules to make rules. The Hanafis we use the topics to make rules. Then the faqih himself, not in usul al-fiqh, the faqih himself, sometimes he wants to use a topic to prove a topic. He doesn't have any evidence, he doesn't have any rule, but he has another topic that's similar. So he takes this topic to prove this topic. That's takhrij al-furu' ala al-furu'.
How do they get to topic without the rule?
Easy. What is the ruling on eating pig?
Just like that.
What's the ruling on eating pig?
Haram.
Haram. You know that. You know usul al-fiqh? No. But I know eating pig is halal. I got the topic. I don't understand why it's haram. I don't understand all the background information, but I know eating pig is what? Haram. Like, what about eating hippo?
It's land and water mammal.
Well, that's the question. Or let's take something that might be a little bit more clearer. What about eating boar?
What's a boar again?
Wild pig, yeah.
Oh,
It's a wild pig.
Yeah, wild pig.
Can I eat a boar? Well, no, that's too easy because you said that's part of a pig. That's why I went to hippo. What about elephant? What about rhinoceros? You see what I'm saying? Can I eat those things?
Yeah, definitely.
Why?
Because it wasn't said.
Yeah, it wasn't said. So I don't have any rule. I don't have any usul al-fiqh that I'm building off of. But I look at the pig and I say, man, this pig, this rhinoceros is just a big pig with a horn. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you see the method that I'm using. You see what I'm saying? I compared this one to that one. And I see that, man, this rhinoceros really seems similar to a pig to me. I say, why does it seem similar? And then I start having to do all of the things I do as a faqih when I do qiyas. The asl, the fadl, the hukm, the illah, all of that stuff. The point of it is that, what did I do here? I used an issue to prove an issue. But there's the fourth thing that we're talking about, what this book is going to help us do, and that is using a rule to prove the issue. Not the rule to make a rule, not the issues to make a rule, not an issue to prove an issue, the rule to prove an issue. How do I know I'm using the rule correctly? What do I need to do? I studied the rule. I know the rule. How do I know if I'm using it correctly?
You have somebody before you?
No. How do I know they're using it correctly? I give you a rule. I give you multiplication. This is the rule in multiplication.
Right.
Whenever you multiply something, you just double that to whatever extent the digit is. So 2 times 2 is, because what did I say? What did you do? I did 2 multiplied 2 times. 2 times is 4. What if I do 2 times 3?
2 times 3.
2 3 times is 6. And then I do my math. 2, 4, 6. Ah, the rule works. You see what I'm saying? I use the rule to prove the issue. How do I know the rule is right? How do I know I'm using the rule right? By applying it, right? What's the guy's name? Terrence Howard. He says 1 times 1 is what? No, he says 2. It's crazy. He says 1 times 1 is 2, right? This is real. There's a group of people that say 1 times 1 is 2. He believes it 100%. So the point of it is that how do I know he's wrong? I start applying the rule. If I say 1 time, 1, how many is that? That's 1. And that's the rule. If I say 1 time, it's 1. If I say 1 2 times, it's what? 2. You see what I'm saying? If I say 2 1 time, it's what? 2. That's how the rule works. So I know the rule works when I apply it and I see the answers lining up. So this book is going to help us do that. It's going to help us apply the rules to the topics. So we can learn that we're on the right, because as a student, how do you know you're developing correctly? You read a book. You think you know the answer, right? But maybe you didn't carry your 1. Maybe this whole time you've been saying 1 times 1 is 2, and you didn't even notice. So this book is going to help us, I see how they get there. Because they use this ayat, and this is how they use the ayat. So that's the goal of this book, for us to memorize the ayat, because we are going to memorize them. Yes. Memorize. Memorize the ayat. Understand the words of the ayat, the vocabulary, the gharib, and then see the rule in the ayat and how it's applied to different topics.
So it's gonna be something even after Ramadan?
No. After Ramadan, we gotta get back to regular class. But our agenda, our goal, our aim is to at least cover, because one of the things we didn't talk about, so let's talk about it now, the categories of fiqh. How many categories are in fiqh? The majority of them make them 4, or the majority of them make them 3, but the Shafi'iyya make them 4, and we'll take his categorization. You have al-ibadat, the things that are worship. What are the things that are worship? Salat, zakat, Saum, Hajj. It's one more thing. It's kind of in the middle. What's the 6th pillar of Islam? Jihad. Jihad is in the middle, right? Jihad is an act of worship for the one doing it. And it's an act of interaction for the one it's being done to. So it's in the middle. The acts of worship are just you and Allah. Salat, who is that? Zakat. Even though you're giving it to somebody, it's between you and Allah. Saum. Hajj. Jihad. But man, this is how I interact with these other people too. So now that's the second category, interaction. Mu'amalat. How you deal with other people. What other things go into interaction? Bir al-walidain, okay. Buying and selling. Inheritance. These are things that you deal with other people. They're not by themselves act of worship. These are how you conduct yourself with other people. Hunting, food, drink. After that, the Shafi'iyya, they break up and they take out of interaction the affairs of marriage and divorce. They make it its own topic. Even though marriage and divorce is part of interaction. Marriage, divorce, child raising, they make that its own topic. And then what's the last topic? Worship, interaction, marriage, divorce. We're missing something. I want you to rack your brain about it. Think about it. The first thing you do in life is what?
What do you mean in life?
First thing you do. First thing that's necessary for you to do.
Eat?
What's the first wajib?
Wajib.
It's the first thing that's necessary for you to do. That's why we say these things.
Believe Allah and His messenger.
Ibadah. Play. You've established your ibadah. You know how to pray. You know how to fast. What's the next thing you need to do? Huh? You need to establish your life. You've established your ibadah, but how you going to eat? So you need to go do what now? Learn how to do business. Learn how to make money. Learn how to spend money. Right? Learn your interactions. طيب, you've gotten money. What's the next thing you're going to do? As a man, once you get money, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go get married. Right? I've been trying this whole time to get money just so I can get married. That's all I want money for. Right? So now you learn marriage. You learn child raising. You learn all of these things. Okay, what's the only thing that's left? That's inheritance. You already covered that.
Preparing yourself for the akhirah?
That's life. We're talking about ahkam, rules. You talked about all the things you should do.
All the things you shouldn't do?
What are the things you shouldn't do?
The prohibitions?
Crime and punishment.
Oh man, I was gonna say.
You're alive. You've established your life. You got your wife. You better not commit zina.
Wouldn't that be interaction too?
No, because it's crime and punishment. It has. You might do it with somebody. You might not do it with somebody else.
Gotcha.
Right? It's crime and punishment. So that's how they categorize fiqh into these chapters, right? So the point of all of that is to say our goal in this Ramadan is to get through the section Rub al-Ibadat. They call it the fourth that deals with worship. If you categorize fiqh into these four categories, our goal is to accomplish the fourth that deals with worship. Right? I don't think we're going to cover the whole book in Ramadan.
No. I'm saying like after Ramadan.
Next Ramadan, inshallah, we'll cover the fourth that deals with mu'amalat. And the Ramadan after that, we'll cover the fourth that deals with marriage. And the fourth after that, we'll cover the fourth that deals with crime and punishment.
So which category you said this is? Is this the
Ibadat. This is the first one.
first one?
Salat to Hajj. طيب. Anything else? تقسيم الفكر الأربعة. نتكلم عن مفردات. Okay, طيب. As I said, we don't want to read the whole book because reading the book is a lot of book. So I expect everybody to kind of read ahead if that is in your capacity so that you have questions about what we're covering. Shall we call it that? We're starting on page 8.
Isn't it like only 19 pages we have for Psalm?
For Psalm, I don't know. I didn't get that far. I don't read ahead. I take it on the fly.
Kitab al-Siyam, I think it's like 1, 2, 3.
You're on 100 something pages already though.
No, I'm saying from here. From Kitab al-Siyam.
Oh, from Kitab al-Siyam, yeah. Allah Akbar. But we're on page 8.
Oh, I thought we're starting Kitab al-Siyam.
No, we're starting Kitab al-Tahara. Rub al-Ibadat. Salat, Zakat, Sawm, Hajj.
No, I'm saying I thought
Because of
Ramadan is
Ramadan,
coming,
just going to be
yeah.
Ramadan. La, la, la.
Okay, now that makes sense.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. 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 الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضل وبعث رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد رسول الله. But does everybody have the small book, the origin, right? That's just the ayat of ahkam, no explanation. I think everybody has that, right? It's white with orange trim on it. Huh? I don't think you have it either.
هذا هو الإسلام؟
لا 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 لا. Nobody has it, so we can't show anybody it.
You guys don't do it.
You have it with you?
Not with me.
The picture of it, I uploaded it to the WhatsApp. If you're on the WhatsApp, I uploaded a version of it on the WhatsApp. The version that I uploaded on the WhatsApp is deficient. Yes, I'm talking about that one. You have that one? There's a PDF of it in the WhatsApp, but the PDF is the old print, and so there's some typos and mistakes in it. But when we talk about the obligation of memorization, then it's based on that book. So do you have to memorize the whole ayat? No, because he doesn't mention the whole ayat. We're going to talk about that today. But, like, for example, read the first ayat, Kitab al-Tahara. Read the Kitab al-Tahara. Somebody with just that book. Just that book. It's in the WhatsApp. He got the WhatsApp open? طيب. I'll read Kitab al-Tahara. The author, he says, Kitab al-Tahara, Bab al-Miyah. وَيُنَزِّلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُم بِهِ. And he says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ الرِّيَاحَ بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. And this print misses the ayat that he starts the book off with, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. That's what's necessary to memorize. The first Kitab al-Tahara, is only 3 ayat. Right? فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. The next ayah, وَيُنَزِّلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُم بِهِ. The third ayah, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. That's what you have to memorize. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to cover the whole ayah. Right? We need to know the whole ayah. And we'll talk about that. So, the author, he starts off by saying Kitab al-Tahara. And like I said, we're not going to read the whole book, but we'll paraphrase the points of reference for him. And what we're going to do is we're going to do our own work and see how we line up with the author. So when we say Kitab, does everybody know how the scholars use the word Kitab? All right, Kitab, what does the word actually mean? It means to gather and to combine, to put together. And so any subject that has in it multiple subtopics or subcategories, they call that a kitab, because it combines together multiple subjects that all share the same topic. Kitab al-wudu will cover how to make wudu, what breaks wudu, right? When is wudu wajib? It'll cover all the different topics that deal with wudu. So they call that a kitab because it gathers all of those topics. Just like they call a book because it gathers what? Pages and words. It gathers the words together on the page. That's called what? Kitab. So when the scholars say kitab, they're talking about a category that has under it multiple subcategories that all share the same common theme. Anything. And that's why I want you to read ahead, because if you come across any words or anything like that or any subject matter that you didn't quite understand, we can talk about it. But that's basically what he's saying in that first statement. He says, وَالْكِتَابِ وَالطَّهَارَةِ طيب, Kitab al-Tahara. What is Tahara? Tahara linguistically is an-nadafa, cleanliness, to remove or keep clean, to remove filth or to keep something free of filth. Nazaha wa nadafa. And the religion, it is 2, or better yet, 3 concepts. Anybody remember them? Oh, that's the 2 types of tahara, that's true. But I mean the tahara to shar'iyya. There's 2, or better yet, 3 aspects of tahara. Raful hadith, removing hadith. Everybody knows what a hadith is, right? What is hadith? Something that it breaks your wudu? No. Something that happens to your body that prevents you from making salah or things similar. Ritual impurity, spiritual impurity, whatever you want to. But what is it? It's something that happens to your body that stops you from being able to pray and things similar. Major or minor. Tahara is raful hadith. What else? You said it. Zawal al-najasa. Removing najasa. If something has najasa on it, to get rid of that najasa is tahara. And then we also mentioned the third category, which is something similar to removing hadith. Either it doesn't actually remove hadith, like renewing your wudu, or it's similar to removing hadith, like cleaning your nose out 3 times after you wake up from sleeping at night. It doesn't remove hadith, but it's similar to it. You get the dirt and the snot out of your nose, right? So this is tahara. So this first chapter, this first kitab, is going to deal with a bunch of topics that are relevant to what subject matter? Tahara. So this is Kitab al-Tahara. طيب, he mentions that Tahara is accomplished with disagreement by 2 things. What's the first thing that accomplishes Tahara? And there's no disagreement. Water. What's the other thing that accomplishes Tahara? Dirt. Right? Dirt, people disagree, can you use it as a purifier or not? Does it actually clean or not? But as it comes to water, there's no disagreement. And so for that reason, he starts off the first subsection. He says, Bab el-Miyah. Bab is the subcategory under a kitab. A bab in Arabic is the opening from which one enters. Not the barrier, the opening from which one enters. What's that right there? That hole right there in the wall. Hada babun. Like, what's that thing behind the hole that stops you from getting into the next room? Sadd. Sadd al-bab. Right? Block the door. Because the doorway is what allows you to get from one place to another. This is a bab. Okay, there's no door there. It's a bab. Right? So the point of it is that they call the subcategory a bab because once you get the major topics, those different points of entrance are the abwab. So what's our first point of entrance into purification? Water. Al-Miyah. طيب. Is water a singular or a plural word?
What, ma?
Yeah, al-ma. Is it singular or plural? It's singular?
Yeah.
Water is a mass. It's a lot.
Yes, water is water. There's no singular for it. Water has no singular. Bring me a cup of water. Bring me a drop of water. Bring me a bucket of water. Bring me an ocean of water. Water is, there's no singular for it. Right? This isn't a linguistical thing. There's no singular. Some words don't have a singular. What's the singular form of nisa? It's a different word. It's a different word. It has no singular. There's no singular word for nisa. Mar'a, imra'a, that's a different word. Right?
What's the difference? It's a different word.
What do you mean, what's the difference?
Isn't it the same?
No, I didn't say it's a difference. Just said it's a different word. But this word has no singular. Ma is a word that has no singular. There are a lot of words like this. Right? An-namal. What is an-namal? An-namal. Surah an-namal.
The ants.
Ants. Oh, what's the singular?
Ant.
How you say it?
Namlun.
Namla.
Namla.
Right? Some words start off as a plural, and then to make them singular, you have to add a tarmabuta. Right? Because the word naml by itself is plural. So the word water by itself is ism jins jam'i. It's a plural word. Since water is already plural, how is he making the chapter regarding waters? Because of the different types. So even though water is plural itself, it can have different types. So this chapter is going to be talking about what specifically? The different types of water. The different types of water. طيب. Next. The first ayah we have in front of us is mentioned in 2 places in the Quran. And we're going to see this often. Sometimes the author is going to repeat the ayat, meaning the same ayat. He's going to repeat it in multiple places in the book because one ayat can have multiple ahkam. And sometimes we find that Allah himself repeats the hukm in multiple places in the book. Like we see here. This ayat, how many times is it found in the Quran? Twice. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, in Surah Al-Nisa. Naam, Surah Al-Nisa. Naam. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. That's what he mentions as the ayah, right? فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. That's the ayah. That's what you need to memorize. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. What surah is it in? Surah Al-Nisa, ayah kam? 43. I don't care about the numbers of ayah. I never memorize them. I don't memorize them. All you need to know is what? فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. Even if you don't know Surah Al-Nisa. Is that the kalam of Allah? 100%? Okay, you did good enough. Right? Now, knowing what surah it's in is for you to have the ability to do what? To get back to it when you need to. If you're not going to memorize it, you need to be able to do what? To get back to it. But you're memorizing it. So I don't need to get back to it. I know it. The ayat is to help you get back to it. But you know it. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. طيب. It's also mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah كم؟ رقم كم؟ 6. لا 6 صح؟ خلاص. Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Okay. Yeah, صح. طيب. So what are those two ayat? Because like we said, we got to talk about the whole ayat, and we're going to do our work, and then we're going to see what the author does. So after salat, inshallah, we'll come. But let's read the two ayat first, real quick before salat. يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Surah An-Nisa, ayat كم؟ 43. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى ولا جنبا حتى تغتسلوا إلا عابر السبيل وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا سعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم لا فامسحوا بأيديكم وأرجلكم فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم إن الله عفوا غفورا. Nobody got the Mus'haf open? Is that right? You just tell me if I make a mistake. Correct me. That's all.
I just found.
You just found it.
You just completed.
Okay, no, you keep it. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى ولا جنبا حتى تغتسلوا إلا عابر السبيل. حتى أو نعم يا أيها الذين أحسنت يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولوا ولا جنبا حتى تغتسلوا إلا عابر السبيل وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم إن الله كان عفوا غفورا. Right? Oh, you who have iman, don't approach the salat and you're drunk or you're intoxicated until you know what you're saying, nor in a state of sexual impurity until you bathe, unless you're just passing through, passing through the masjid. And if you were maradha, sick or on a journey, or if one of you came from the dip in the ground, from defecating, or you've touched women sexually, then if you don't find any water, then seek out clean earth and wipe your faces and your hands. Indeed, Allah is pardoning and forgiving. That's the first ayah. The second ayah is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayat 6. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعب. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين وإن كنتم جنبا فاطهروا وإن جاء أحدكم وإن كنتم جنبا فاطهروا Yeah, that's what I was going to next. Yeah. وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه يريد الله بكم اليسر لا ما يريد الله بكم العسر ولكن يريد ليطهركم نعم ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج ولكن يريد ليطهركم به. Well, I'm saying ليطهركم به, right? وليطهركم ولكن يريد okay وليتم عليكم نعمته وليتم نعمته عليكم لعلكم تشكرون وليتم نعمته عليكم لعلكم تشكرون. Oh, you who have iman, when you stood to offer salat, فاغسلوا وجوهكم, wash your faces, وأرجلكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق, and your arms to the elbows, وامسحوا برؤوسكم, and wipe over your head and your feet to the ankles. And if you were in a state of sexual impurity, then clean yourselves. And if one of you was sick or on a journey or one of you came from using the dip in the ground to defecate, or you've touched women and you don't find any water, then seek out clean earth and wipe your faces and your arms with it. Allah does not want to place any hardship upon you, but instead He wants to purify you and to complete His favor upon you in order that you can be appreciative. These are the two ayat. We'll talk about them after the salah, inshallah.